familiar faces here, so that's great. I see a couple of new faces here, and we appreciate everyone new that was able to show up that wasn't able to be here last time. We're going to cover a couple of things tonight, show you some new things to our website, show you the kind of the full final report that we put together to present to the school board, and a couple other things, talk about some ways you can help, get your ideas on how you think we can spread the word about our efforts a little bit better over the next couple of months as we kind of gear up and continue the effort to try to get a Hardin Valley middle school and a solution to the development and the overcrowding that we're seeing coming in our middle schools here in the Hardin Valley area. So with that being said, I do want to just go ahead and start by introducing Knox County Mayor Tim Burchett. We sincerely appreciate him being here to come to speak to us for a few minutes. He'll be able to take a few questions afterward. I know he's on a tight deadline, so he may have to duck out, but we appreciate you being here along with Brad Anders, our Knox County Commissioner. We'd love to have you say a few words. Thank you for being here.
I'll be brief. It's a pleasure to be here with my friend Brad Anders, who actually is the chairman of the county commission. So I told him, I said, it's kind of like a Shark Tank. I'm just going to stick you and then leave you in here, and I'm going to ease on out the door. No, all kidding aside, I'm just here to talk to you about your middle school. First and foremost, I think the thing you need to understand is that it's ultimately going to be the superintendent and the school board. I say pretty much in that order, and they're going to make the decision on your middle school. A lot of folks have said, well, you know, what about Carter and how that worked? Well, I said Carter had been on the capital plan for I think over 20 years. So they've been told it was, and they were told it wasn't. And during the campaign, I was asked about it, and I said, yeah, it's something I'd like to see happen, because I thought it was a reasonable request. The folks said the school, I believe, was built in the 20s, I believe, and it was 3 or 4 different add-ons, and we had a commode that backed up into water fountains. I mean, it's just a nightmare. We had one commode in the, in the kitchen.
Nice background.
Yeah, well, nice background. We had one bathroom actually in the kitchen that they had built it up on a platform so that so gravity would, you know, it's the law, so it would work. So we really needed, and they had lead-based paint and ceilings, and it was just a nightmare. And so we addressed that, and we did that for, as I stated at the time, it's a one-time deal. We sold properties. In my opinion, the county, I'm not a big fan of government owning too much property. We can take it off the tax rolls. A lot of times we're terrible stewards of your hard-earned money, and a lot of these buildings, as you see, by the time the commission and myself get a hold of them, they usually are in pretty bad shape. I remember one of the schools that we just recently were able to put out on the open market and get it back on the tax rolls, and the roof had caved in. After we'd had it for less than a year, we'd already been trying to put it back on the tax rolls. So we were fortunate, though, to get it back on. But I'll just go over a little bit of the Carter School history so everybody knows, because I know that's one of the things everybody always says. What about Carter? Well, for nearly a decade, the school board had promised the Carter community a new school. As a matter of fact, I said it had been on those capital plans for close to 20 years. It would go on and off their capital improvement plan. And by the time I took office, it looked like the administration was going to move forward with putting a sort of a Band-Aid, is what I thought, on the rundown school. The biggest thing the school had going for it was the community support, which you all have here. I told the superintendent then and the school board, I said, you know, I don't find anything wrong with a group of parents concerned about their kids' education. I think that's a big positive. I come from a family of public educators. My mama taught school. She taught at the old Young High School, and then at Bearden High School the first year they built it. She retired, and then decided to go back into teaching and taught 10 years at Knoxville College. Some months she was paid and some months she wasn't, but she loved teaching. My father was a dean at the University of Tennessee. I myself have a degree in education. My sister has a degree in education. So I know a little bit about education. It's in my family. Of course, because the community had promised the school for so long, and it was sorely needed, I promised to work on it, I said during the campaign. And it did, but it was because of a long history of community support and the work of people on my staff that actually had. I told them I stumbled over the 1 yard line and they ran with the ball about 99 yards. Hugh Holt in my office. If it hadn't been for Hugh, it would not have happened. And the good work of the commission, if they hadn't been willing to stick their neck out with me on that venture, because it wasn't really, when I spent 16 years in the state legislature, 4 years in the House and 12 years in the Senate, I can't tell you how many times some guy in a leisure suit and zip-up dingo boots told me, boy, that ain't the way we've always done it around here. And I said, well, you're right. It's not the way we've always done it around here, but things need to change, and they have a little bit. I think you need to let your school board members know what you need and what you want. Go to the school board meetings and speak. You don't have to wear them out. I wouldn't be negative about it. I told people, I'll see a show of hands. How many, I voted against the Tennessee Titans coming to Tennessee. I thought it's a bad use of taxpayers' money. I'm more of a libertarian when it comes to things like that. How many phone calls do you think I received from Knox County, from the people who could vote for me, to encourage me to vote against that? And I did vote against it. I was one of 6 legislators in the entire state that voted against it. How many calls do you think I got? How many?
3.
4. It was a groundswell of support. I will tell you this, I had every billionaire in the state, that's with a B. Of course, during these tough economic times, they've all become multimillionaires. So, but every one of them in the state was calling me, putting pressure on. But you know what? They couldn't vote for me. And I would encourage you, when you call your school board members, you don't need to remind them that you can vote them out of office. They know that. They rarely ever get a call, and that's partially by design. Since like utility boards, they always, before I took office, some of them would have their meetings during the day when people couldn't come complain about their rates, but those things have changed since I've been in office. So the school board is accessible to you. I would burn up those phone lines, write them letters and emails, but don't just settle with an email, because just like Brad and I have gone in together. We didn't know it, but we have a long lost ancestor in Africa that we sent a great deal of money to over the internet, and we're gonna be out of this business here pretty soon. All kidding aside, email was great for about the first week, and people love to hear from you. It's a whole different world when they hear from you. Go speak to them at the school board meetings. I'd let them know what you think. I think it's First Amendment is a great thing if somebody says something you don't like, and I would use that greatly. In 2002, the purchase of the property at Carter appeared on Commission's agenda. In 2004, Carter Elementary Superintendent Lindsay's 5-year capital improvement plan. This tells you how far back it goes. We had mold issues, of course, inside Carter Elementary. Carter Elementary was removed from Superintendent Lindsay's capital improvement proposal in 2006. So you have to watch it every step of the way. Every step of the way. In 2010, I took office, and Carter enrollment actually surpassed the 2015 growth projections that we've been given. We convened a 13-member committee to develop an RFP for Carter. In 2011, ground was broken. In 2013, the new Carter School opened. So it wasn't just some overnight thing. So I would tell you not to get frustrated, because it is an ongoing thing. It's like a stalactite. You just got to keep adding to it until they just get tired of seeing it. So I don't know. I'll stop there and answer any questions. If they're really tough, I'll yield to Brad Anders and do my sharp time. Yes, sir.
Question. You mentioned it, I think Brad has also, that it's ultimately the school board decision. But, they're really not the ones that if I understand the process, the ones creating the issue. It's all the re-subdividing the property, which is what causes the growth of the kids. They gotta have places to live. That burdens them. So I guess my question is there a process problem with it? The developers aren't paying enough to support, aren't paying enough, or they're not the new homes aren't generating enough money to support infrastructure.
Well, in Nashville one year, we had a legislator that for his district in Clarksville that passed it was a $500 builder's fee or some new thing that was supposed to go to schools. And when he got back to session, he could not undo that legislation fast enough. I mean,
Well, I'm not saying that that's the solution,
Yeah.
I'm saying, but should they,
Sure.
development not pay for infrastructure?
Well,
Is it no?
technically, they do at some point through taxes, through their property taxes. That's the whole, it's supposed to be the system, but of course it doesn't work that way. I would say you probably have more of a problem with MPC when they allow for subdividing and new developments in these areas. But that doesn't do away, I mean, right now you could stand, from what I heard y'all say, you could stand a new school, is that correct?
Well, I mean, if you read the numbers, we're the #1 growth, and our schools, that growth is generating over the maximum capacity fair
Sure.
in Carnes Middle.
It's gotta go somewhere, you're a big
Yeah, well,
success.
so we've been, our growth has been providing a lot more additional tax dollars to the county, which then goes to the 55% goes to the school board. So they're getting the money, they have been getting the money for the last 10 years. But I'd like for a little bit to come back.
Not all of the money, though. Property tax does not provide all of the money for schools or county government. Sales tax,
Right.
it generates a large portion of that also. And so of the $200, or the $2 and I want to say 21 cents, it got changed because of the reassessments, but there's like $1.08 that goes to schools of your property taxes. And the rest of their money comes from state, federal, mostly state. We talked about it this weekend, I'm sorry.
It all runs together.
It does, there's a lot of
Well,
numbers.
62% of
Our-
the
of our-
county budget
Right.
goes to the school system.
Yeah, I think it's like 417 million.
So it's
comes
like,
from
it's like
taxes, the other-
420 million
Yeah.
roughly. Total. And since we've taken office, we've added an additional $40 million to that.
County provides $220 million of their budget, the rest is state and federal money.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are doing a good job, I'm just.
Yeah, I know.
See, you'd hope that.
It's kind of overwhelming.
When the
Yeah.
planning comes in, okay, yes, when you look at stuff, you say, yeah, hey, we can handle these kids. You're putting a little bit, squirreling a little bit back for, okay, I know a school's gonna be needed in 10 years from now, so I better squirrel a little bit back of this taxpayer,
Yeah.
to pay for a school that I know is coming down the road.
Sure.
Need.
And I think he's saying, we're asking how can Knox County better manage the growth in regards to continued approval of building permits and rezoning, and ensuring that the infrastructure where developments are occurring can support the population growth that's gonna come along with that.
Well, the problem you have is, I mean, it's politics at its base. I mean, at its basics, you have people, they have immediate needs that come out, emergency situations or whatever, and anything political. And you're gonna see that. You can talk about those funds that you can set aside, but probably funds that are set aside, you gotta remember these are politicians. And I mean, that's probably we ran into in Nashville a lot, of course, in Washington DC. I mean, they're not spending your grandkids, they're spending your great-great-grandkids' money now. So any pool of money is a pool of money. It's like the road builders in Nashville when I was there. It was sacred ground. Never touch the road fund because we have a system, the envy of the nation. But when times get tough and you're looking at an election, am I going to do a tax increase? Or am I going to pull some money out of voters' reserves? That's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, part of this school system's money that recently they're set aside, they're what we call a rainy day fund, but it's undesignated balance. Most of that a lot of that has went to computer and technology upgrades because of state mandates for testing. Everything has to be done on computers, and so now we got to get all the schools with broadband internet. We got to get you got to have one device for for every 6 kids in your school, and so we're only 50% there.
We just want chairs.
I know.
Internet's great, but I just want a chair.
I know what you're saying, but I mean, that's where that money is going the last few years.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mayor Burchett, I very much appreciate this gentleman's comments about the possible need for adequate facilities taxes or impact fees and get some funding earmarked for the residential growth. But short of that, what isn't happening is that there's too little communication between NPC and the school system. 10 years ago, that process used to be Rick Grubb tootling around in a pickup truck on his knee.
And 10 years ago, though, they didn't have quite as much space up there at the city county building either.
Yeah, he may have found out and probably still finds out about the same time these folks did.
Sure.
Now, in other locales, I am aware that the planning body zips to the school system pertinent information that they need to know about, gets their feedback on it before the planning body makes a decision. And that does not happen in Knox County. I mean, getting funding earmarked for schools is a pipe dream. I'd love it, but I would be appreciative just to see better communication. Why does NPC not take, you know, these recommendations that they're required to approve and run them past the school system and get that feedback at the front end?
I'd love to answer that, but I would say that you probably need to ask the NPC
And I
and the
have,
school board.
I actually talked to someone within NPC
They should
and asked
be doing it
them
every time.
particularly, can you tell me how many school board members have attended reviewing monthly meetings on capacity growth in their districts?
Well, I'm talking
And
about
they said
changing their procedures.
Well, I know, but, you know, I think at the NPC, you gotta figure NPC, they're full-time bureaucrats. School board's part-time. NPC ought to walk across the hall, or walk across the street, or down the hall and talk to them a little bit about it.
Yeah, I lay it on
So they can,
NPC's lap.
but, you know, when they do their capital improvement plans, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, but I believe they do consult the NPC and look at probable growth, and they look at census numbers and things like that. So-
Yeah, whenever the school board puts together that plan, every development has an impact study done on it, traffic and schools, every subdivision it's on the agenda, it's on NPC's agenda, and everything's in that packet that we see. And so, the information is there, it's just a matter of data mining it for whoever wants to watch it. With us voting on all of them, we actually are the ones that have to look at it.
Well, I do know the NPC is releasing, they said within 4 to 6 weeks, a new study on the county's northwest sector, which has completed the cities, and they will have a public meeting for the one-year plan. Is that something you encourage us to attend?
I don't think it would hurt. It's public access. Something too, you gotta remember with NPC, it's created as a body, the legislature, and like a lot of things, in the beginning, it was used for one thing, and it's grown into this whole bureaucracy. At some point, I think we need to look at putting them back in a smaller container and using them on contractual reasons, and we've been looking at that and just what the legislative intent was originally of the NPC. So, you're exactly right. Is there any other questions?
Just got one general one. I mean, in terms of county needs, I mean, roads, emergency, funds, everything else. Where do you see a major renovation to a school, whether it's a Carter, a Gibbs, a Hardin Valley, North Shore Elementary? I mean, where does that rank up when
The school system has to bring it to us. I mean, I can't stress that enough. They get very angry if we start walking across the street and try to tell them what to do. So I would suggest that should start with them. And they bring their priority list to us. And I meet with the school board, and I meet with Dr. McIntyre and Commissioner Anders, and we go over all the numbers over what we're doing and how we're trying to do it. And that's where it has to begin there. It can't begin on the west side of Gay Street. It has to be on the east side. Okay. Yes, sir.
Correct, you said it begins with Dr. McIntyre, you said in that order. So
Yeah, I mean, he runs the school board. He's
He's
technically
behind
a
it.
staffer, but he's not. Just ask him. Literally, all you got to do is just look at the structure. Y'all want to deal with reality. That's the reality. You get with McIntyre, and if he wants it, then
it'll happen.
probably. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna ask, because I was told by Mr. Norman, who called me last week, that they,
Is Commissioner Norton?
yes,
Okay.
Commissioner Norman, yes. He called me last week, and we spoke a lot. He owns some property down here as well, and he said, if I lived in the Hardin Valley community, and built my house down there, that's exactly where I'd want my kids to go, within a few miles radius of each other.
Yes, ma'am.
But he said, that the school board actually asked for the money from you guys, and then you approve that. So once it hits that stage, then, what's your all's kind of, in the commission, what's your all's kind of process of deciding if the county or the school board gets that extra money when there is a necessary,
Yeah, we'll just explain the budget process with you a little bit, that each department, each schools, sheriff, county commission, we submit a budget to the mayor's office. They kind of go through it, and we talk about needs, and each department has a meeting. I'll meet with Tim and Chris, and we'll talk about
Chris
this.
Caldwell, he's my finance director.
Yeah. he's the brains of the operation, and, of the whole operation of the county, not just he is a right, but, he is, we'll meet and we'll see what we got, and you know, right now, sales tax revenue's down, and so the county's not looking at some, like last year, we had a $17 million surplus.
The state missed it by 3%.
Yeah, and so right now, until Amazon kicks in January, which hopefully will help us the state a little bit, then we gotta make sure that money gets to the right zip code, which is another issue. And so, and they're projecting, the state budget projects another 3.5% growth next year on top of what they missed this year. And so, we've gotta work within those numbers and find out where we can go. So what happens is they submit the budget, the school board submits the budget to the mayor's office, the mayor submits a total budget to us. And last year, the total budget was discussed individually with the finance director, the mayor, each commissioner talked about it. We had a couple of meetings about it. It passed, 11-0 without a discussion. And so it was a good budget. It was a solid budget. It's still a good budget. Our expenses are down, but our revenues are way down. And so we got to be very careful this year. And as we plan for next year, we got to be careful. But they will submit that, and then we will approve their 5-year capital plan. And what you'll want is sometime in their close 5-year capital plan, you'll want a piece of some money for property. That's your first step, and that's your first glimmer of hope that they've taken you seriously. Because Carter held that land for about 15 years before they even broke the land. They're actually holding a piece of land on Tazewell Pike at Atkins Road that was supposed to be Gibbs Elementary. They've actually got enough to put a middle school on the Gibbs Elementary property they bought 4 or 5 years ago. So they've got another piece of property sitting there for growth later. So that's part of it.
When we talk about the sales tax being off, though, we're talking about, the impact to the operating budget. Obviously, we don't pay cash for schools, so we're not talking about the sales tax leaving this community unable to build a school. We're talking about the sales tax potentially leaving this community unable to cover the debt service.
Well, this is a new school, and so building the school, we could build your school tomorrow, and it wouldn't be that big of an impact. You got to operate a brand new school. This is,
Right.
Carter Elementary was moving old school to new school.
That's true.
This is a brand new school with the new principals, vice principals, teachers, and so.
One-time initial expense with ongoing,
Yeah.
because they're
That's
hiring
true.
new teachers.
We could borrow money cheap right now, but operating a new school is.
And that's what I was gonna ask you, what is that rule of thumb, as to the debt service relative to the price of the school? If Chris Caldwell were here, he could rattle it off, I'm sure, but,
What is it, if we borrow $1 million, what's it cost us?
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was the question. I was trying to get at what would be the impact of the debt service to the
The
budget.
debt service, the
Depends
schools,
on what the bonding services. We have an excellent bond rating. We pay on record to pay down $100 million here over 5 years.
since I've been elected, we've paid off more debt than we've borrowed. We pay off every year, we pay off $40 million, and then it's went from, we borrowed $12 million one year, I think last year was $12 million. So we've been going down $15, $20 million a year, every year since 2008. And so we've got to keep that price on our debt a little bit too high.
There are bonding, when I talked to our bonding agents in New York and I think Dallas, Texas, after I explained to our financial situation, I actually thought they were going to ask me to be friends of theirs on Facebook. I mean, they were so delighted. You got to realize this community's our size. Have people like Brad Anders at the hand at the till. There's communities our size that are bankrupt and they're in some serious, they're leaning, trying to get the federal government to bail them out, and that's just not going to happen. Being taken over. We're nowhere near that scenario, but we did go on a pretty good spree there for a while.
Mayor, is there much surplus property still on the county rolls?
Not really. It's funny that some of it, one of it's attached to a little airport. Some of it, I think there's a piece in Cedar Bluff, but it's all over the county. Actually, we've actually talked to people about seeing what we could do about taking the whole bunch and doing something with. But some of it you just wouldn't.
There's an acre on the dead end road off Ball Road that somebody don't know. We bought it for a park, and there's 4 houses on the road, so you'll never use that. So we'll just surplus that.
Yeah,
But there's no significant.
Generally, the generosity of our forefathers was not very generous. I tell you what I'd like to see is at some point, some of this landlocked property that TVA has that's in between houses, people's property that they can't get to. And if we could free some, if we get the federal government to change that, you know, as the president was talking about privatization of TVA, that would be some big chunks of property, because what they'd have to do is go back to some of the original landowners and their heirs and offer it to them, and you could see some serious money generated that way. But it'd be a one-time deal. It's not anything other than that. Yes, ma'am.
Could you please explain how we got in the North Shore Elementary, how that came about?
Well, North
How
Shore
did that
Elementary went
happen?
through
That's pure growth. It's, they built AL lots, and then it was kind of like Hardin Valley Elementary. As soon as they built it, they put trailers behind it. And so they had to build it. Everything is moving west. You know, the center of the city used to be Beard's, now the center of the city is West Town Mall.
Kingston Pike and North Shore was the
So
same.
how long did that take, though, to get on the books and get, how?
Yeah, it's probably been about an 8-year process, I think. It was on the capital plan when I came on commission.
I mean, you're saying they had to build it. Well, we're there.
Yeah.
I mean, every school we have in our sector has reached or exceeded the 85%.
Well, they were above 100. I think they were above 110 in all the elementary schools.
I guess what I
Well, I
guess
think
I-
this is the thing, see, as frustrated as you all are, and you know, you want to direct it towards Brad, there's no need to. I mean, it has to start with the school system. I can't stress that enough, okay? I mean, they have to.
You saw the reaction with Carter when we forced a school down the road. They hated that.
But then why do we waste, okay, I don't think I should say that.
All right, say it.
But like at the middle school then, I mean, I've had several go through there, and then now I'm gonna have another one, it looks like, but they're wasting like $250,000 on a trailer. And when we could go, you know, the private sector would never spend that much on a trailer.
I asked that whenever I first got elected, because Kyle Elementary School's been in portables for 30 years
Yeah.
or so. And I said, the money you have spent on portables, you could put 2 extensions on the building.
Right.
It's just, back before, in the 90s and the late 80s, early 90s, the school board would get $20 million, let's say this is an easy number for math, $20 million. They would split that between the 9 board members and let them put it somewhere in their district, instead of saying, hey, let's hold $5 million back for 3 years and have an elementary school built. They never did that, and now they're kind of doing that now, but it's breaking a long tradition.
But that system actually, it served us fairly well. I mean, back before we had this huge amounts of growth. I mean, that was just the system, and people accepted it, and
We didn't need new schools.
we didn't need them. I mean,
Now, in the last census, we grew 50,000 people, and my district went from, I was at Clinton, or at Central Avenue Pike, and Tamara, what's the name of the road, home Federal High School. I was Central Avenue Pike to Watt Road. Now my district goes from Clinton Highway to Watt Road, and I've even shrunk inside. I got a little bit of Cumberland States, but I've even shrunk inside of Carnes a little bit, so we're inside the area. So my district gained about 40,000, and we've gained 75 as a county. I gained 40 of it.
Just curious, I mean, are there, do you see any unique pressures for us being at the west side of the county? When you look at the maps, you look at the school zones, it appears that, you know, that there's an issue with the fact that we can't go much further west with, you know, with a school. I mean, that we have to, if we're gonna stay within Knox County, is there any other, you know, aspects of the county government that are being pressured by the fact that we're kind of running out of space here on the end of the county?
Well, I mean, it's going to get. We're not saturated. Yeah, you know, there's plenty. The next growth area will be Gibbs. I mean, once you put that new 4-lane up there, that went from the interstate over in the halls, and it blew real estate out of the water. I mean, it went up 15%, and so that's going to be your next growth area. The bad part about Gibbs is there's only one way up there. It's Washington Pike, and Towson Pike went 2 ways. Washington Pike, Towson Pike, 2-lane roads, and everybody hates them.
You get
But that's
caught there during a wreck or something.
Yeah, that's your next growth area, but right now it's right here. And it is what it is. I mean,
I told the news, I mean, we're victims of our own success in West Knoxville, basically. That's, yes,
And
sir.
I was just gonna tell him that I'm the double wide down here on the 3 acres in the middle of your parking lot, and I run it to you a whole lot cheaper than $250 a year.
Future Jim Clayton. You play a guitar?
Yeah, dude.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
question. Who is in charge of doing the predictions of numbers for each school? Because I work at the academy, and I don't know if it was the school board or if it's someone in government, but they're off every year.
Yeah.
We're slated to have, or predicted to have, like 1,700 kids, so Ms. Reynolds had to go and fire 5, 6 teachers, and oops, we're at 1950. So now we had to like hustle and bustle and like rehire people, and we weren't rehiring teachers until it was approved by budget. And then we're have 45 kids in a classroom until we can get approval for teachers.
You need to get Dr. McIntyre down here, because he can explain the process to you on the numbers. He did
He's
it
coming
just
But he's
tomorrow.
off. I mean,
He's coming tomorrow.
down here.
He's speaking over.
Staying at the school.
Oh, is that here?
Yeah, we're gonna be there.
Is he gonna answer questions or?
I was supposed to go to Nashville, I'm ready to stay home for that.
I bet he doesn't
2
take
years ago,
questions.
whenever it was down middle school, and the only question I had was, when are we getting middle school? He said at that time, it's not even on my radar. I mean, that's exactly what.
It's on his radar.
It's on his radar. So, I mean, I don't know if he's like coming around to it, or that's who we
Well,
have
this
to
group
get
has
to
put it
monitor,
on
or
his
what.
radar.
Well,
This
that's
group
what-
has put it on his radar.
I mean, he's gonna see the news tonight, and, you know, and he'll call me tomorrow, and he knows what's going on. He's very particular about things like that. He gets worried.
Well, we had a retreat this weekend, the school board and county commission, where we discussed.
There were some sidebar conversations during lunch or during dinner. The presentations we didn't talk about. We talked about teacher evaluations and the building of the budget process. We talked about that kind of stuff, and then we had talking about state standards. But the sidebar conversations were there with at some of the tables with Dave Wright. I said one of my meals was Dave Wright and India Kincannon, Kim Severance, myself, Ms. Trainer, and so we kind of sat down and talked about it a little bit. It sounds simple to us, but once you build like that, we were discussing more at Gibbs, because Gibbs is a zoning issue and a geography issue less than it is this is a population issue.
Desegregation is involved in that.
Yeah, and then, in 91 they closed, y'all know the district, they closed Holston and made it a middle school and all that. But we were talking about geography because they're already talking about there may be room within middle schools on the east end to kind of move some zoning out there to change a little bit of that. Maybe move some, add a grade to Brickey, zone some of Hall's middle school over there, and move some Gibbs stuff, which Dave Wright was not too pleased to hear that. But we had those kind of discussions. But it really we didn't get deep into it because it's a decision they need to make as far as capital plan, their next capital plan. We'll know when they submit their capital plan where we stand on
Got 2 more meetings to get to. Thank y'all. Y'all pay my salary. 215-2005 is my phone number. Just call me. Ask for Tim. You'll get me.